The headline of today's discussion is a thought-provoking observation: smartphone use has dramatically dragged down our collective interest in reading. Over the past decade, we've seen measurable declines in reading scores among both students and adults, and professors report that even first-year college students appear less prepared, especially when it comes to tackling dense texts. On the subway, people scroll rather than read. Even when their tablets or phones show a book or article, nobody seems to stare at it. That behavioral shift is one of the clearest signs that our culture is leaning less toward books and more toward fleeting, bite-sized content. In public debate, it's common to hear arguments spun around podcast clips or short-form videos, and when we do see a longer article, it often reads like an essay rather than a traditional paper. A recent piece, "The End of Reading is Here," by Rose Horowitz in The Atlantic, exemplifies this trend. Horowitz argues that we're moving from a culture that prized literacy to one that embraces what she calls a digital culture of orality, where charismatic speakers sway audiences with emotional appeals rather than logical argumentation and citations. James Marriott, in a forthcoming book, has referenced this shift as the new dark ages. I've written about these changes too. I've spent a fair amount of time lamenting how the smartphone might be killing reading. But the story is more complicated. The narrative about a digital decline is mirrored by other simplistic claims: phones causing fertility decline, or being the driver of a teen mental health crisis, or polarizing politics. In each case, history shows a more nuanced picture, with many other factors at play. Reading itself is a case in point. The Atlantic cites data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics' American Time Use Survey, often regarded as the gold standard for how Americans spend their days. The data show fewer Americans report reading for pleasure on any given day, but those who do report longer reading sessions. In other words, people are reading less of the time, but when they do, they're spending more time on each session. This counterintuitive detail throws unification off the simple "reading is dying" narrative. So what does all of this mean? The smartphone, like any tool, affects many domains, but it isn't a single cause of our cultural shifts. We should avoid treating it as the villain or victim in a tidy story. Instead, we picture a messy social landscape, where no single variable — phones, cable TV, social media — pushes society one way or another. Reading declines appear to be intertwined with broader changes in education, media, and even people's day-to-day routines. In short, the smartphone era has changed our reading habits, but the evidence is not a clean, linear story of extinction. It's a complicated conversation that invites nuance, just like the media landscape that reshapes what we consider content. I'll leave you with that thought as we wrap up today's episode. Thanks for listening, and see you next time for more conversations on the shifting cultural currents that shape our world.